Hey guys, Dan here with your Connors review for the week. Just watched tonight's episode, and I apologize for being a little nasally. My allergies really kicking my butt today, so we'll try and get through this without me having a sneezing fit. But tonight's episode was called CPAPs, Hickeys, and Biscuits. And this is the second to last episode for the season. So we're leading into an interesting season finale for something that we found out late in this episode. But let's get to the sort of three plots going on here. So the CPAPs and Biscuits, I guess, are one and the same. I mean, it's sort of a double A plot, really, because both of those things have to do with Dan and Louise, and then the Hickeys has to do with Mark, but also Darlene and Ben and parenting styles and stuff like that. So basically, let's, I guess, talk about the Dan and Louise stuff first, since that comes up first in the title of the episode. So essentially, Dan and Louise, at the end of the last episode, finally got together, made out, decided that, they want to give this a go, be with each other. So, this episode opens with the poker game. DJ was in this episode, actually. Not Mary, but DJ was there. I like that they're at least incorporating him in the poker games, if nothing else. I can definitely do without DJ, for several episodes at a clip. I always talk about that. But, if they want to give him something to do and maybe, not make him a super central character, I think the poker game scenes are smart. And we saw Dan's half brother or step brother. I think half brother. I got this wrong before, and somebody said in all the comments. I think half brother, right? Because step would be if they married into the family, right? Okay. So anyway, the dude Noah that played on Shameless, he returned for this episode for the poker game, and then of course we got to see Chuck, who I always love, James Pickens Jr. But anyway, they were talking about how, hey, maybe tonight's the night. Dan's gonna finally, make it happen with Louise. Give her the biscuit, as they were talking about, which is the biscuit portion of the title. But Dan was a bit nervous, not just because of the intimacy issue, after his wife of 45 years passing away, but the issue of having sleep apnea, wearing a CPAP, with her being there, and how do you explain that? And it's a little embarrassing, and this and that. So he ended up trying to forego the CPAP, but then he was having sleeping issues because of it. So he came clean by the end of the episode, and then I guess we'll talk about the afterthought of the episode, which is sort of like the cliffhanger going into the season finale later, because that doesn't really have to do with Louise at all. But so I guess let me talk about that before I get to the Hickeys portion. I also suffer from sleep apnea. I have been using a CPAP for about 3 years or so. Actually, maybe a little more, maybe about 4 years. And truth be told, it is actually kind of embarrassing. I mean, when I would, go away for the weekend or whatever, with my ex, and we were in a hotel room, like, I didn't bring it. And I use it not every single night anyway. I use it enough, but I don't know. I don't have like an extreme case of apnea, so I don't, if I don't use it for a night or two, it's not the end of the world. But obviously you're supposed to use it because you stop breathing. But yeah, I mean, it was always very, like, sort of embarrassing, and I just thought, well, maybe I would rather snore up a storm than have this big mask on my face, and and he was a sound sleeper, so the snoring wouldn't have bothered him, but I would have felt very self-conscious about that. So this is a totally relatable issue to me personally, which I think, Roseanne always has had the, relatability to its audience in one way or another. I relate on so many issues with this show and the Connors, subsequently. But this is one that to me was like, oh yeah, I totally get why he's so, nervous about this and everything. And of course, Louise is cool, so she took it in stride once he told her basically what was going on. She understood. But yeah, I mean that's he's already got issues with being intimate with her, first person in 2 years, first person since his deceased wife. So to add this on top of it adds another layer. I really liked that they used that as sort of a plot device. And we saw the CPAP in the very first episode of Roseanne season 10 with the reboot. Roseanne wakes Dan up and he's wearing it. So, it's not news to us, the audience, but his sort of embarrassment about it or whatever is new to us. So I thought that was a cool storyline. And I think it was a nice way to sort of ease him into this relationship with Louise by not having it just be a purely like, I'm nervous about having sex with this person type of issue. I thought that was really smart of the writers. So then the other part of the episode is the Hickeys portion, and that is at the very beginning of the episode, after the credits roll, I think, Darlene calls Ben, and she is about to be arrested because she was texting at a stop sign, and that, of course, doesn't get you arrested, but she was mouthing off to the cop, being her Darlene self, and ended up, in the slammer for the night. So she said, Ben, can you please take care of the kids? And he was like, yeah, no problem, whatever. I do think it was weird, because he doesn't live there, but he was there anyway. I guess maybe he was babysitting the kids, but I don't know. It's a little weird just because, I don't know, Harris is 18 or 17 or something. I mean, she's old enough to babysit Mark. But I guess Mark does mention that she was over at Odessa's for the night. So I guess that sort of explains that away. These writers catch everything, I guess. But anyway, he has a girl over for this Earth Day project and wants her to spend the night. And Ben is like, well, okay, I guess that's fine. You're still gay, right? And that was a very funny exchange. And Mark was like, all day, every day. But as it turns out, maybe not so much. Maybe there was some experimenting. We learned that she has this new boyfriend, this girl, and she wanted to make sure she was a good kisser, so she was practicing on Mark and had him do the same to her. Now, whether the story she told was true, we don't know. I believe that Mark at least believed that, because, Mark's pretty gay. And God, I love that there is a gay character that is a young gay character. I mean, I think the youngest character that was out and gay before this that I knew of was on the Fosters, and Jude was probably 13 or 14 at the time. I think Mark is even younger than that because Ben says you're almost a teenager, so he must be 12. So I think it's really cool that they are so openly discussing this on a network sitcom at 8 p.m. I think that's really neat. And, they've even had some episodes about it, but I didn't realize he was quite so young. I guess I thought he was more like 13, 14, but I guess not. So, I think that's awesome that they can bring it up like that. But it definitely lent itself to some funny moments tonight with, Ben asking that. And then later on, when Darlene kind of gets mad about it because the mom of the girl texted her and said, like, why does my daughter have hickeys? Ben is like, oh, he told me he was gay, it was just very funny. This episode really spoke to me a lot because, A, I have a CPAP machine and I have apnea, and B, obviously I'm gay. So I don't know, both of the themes of the episode tonight kind of got me personally. But anyway, what this sort of evolved into was sort of a dust-up between Ben and Darlene. They've, had dust-ups in the last few weeks, but they're trying to conceive this baby, and Darlene is really questioning Ben's parental ability and parental knowledge and, all of this. And he's like, basically what are we to each other? Okay, fine. I know I'm not your kid's dad, but what are we? And so, she went to Becky for some advice. Becky, by the way, a very, very, very small portion of this episode had to do with Becky and Emilio, and her wondering if maybe she should marry him to get him into the country, and basically he can be a father to his baby. And that was it. It was just sort of an afterthought. I mean, it was one scene, really. I mean, I guess they talked about it two different times, but I would maybe call it a C plot, if anything. But I like that they're still talking about Emilio being in the mix. I hope that we bring this up a little bit more in the season finale. I don't want this season to be over. Like, I'm so glad that we got 20 full episodes this season, which is the most since the reboot began. I think the Roseanne season 10, I think, was maybe 9 episodes, and then season 1 of the Connors was something like 13. And so here we have 20 episodes. So, but I don't want it to end. Like, it's easily one of my favorite shows on television. It makes me laugh consistently more than any other show that I watch regularly. And just, from being so invested in these characters for 30 years of my life, I want more, it's greedy, I know, but I wish there were 24 episodes of this season, or at least 22 or 23 like there are on some other ABC shows. But anyway, neither here nor there. Point being, I hope that they bring the Becky Emilio stuff a little bit up front and center on next week's episode. I don't think we need anything more with the Louise plotline for the season finale. She could be in the episode, cool, but I think, we sort of have moved on from that. And then by the end of this episode, Darlene and Ben have sort of come to an agreement that, yeah, okay, let's try living together. I really want to, but I'm scared. I'm a mess, and what if it's my fault? And Ben was like, well, I know you're a mess, and I still want you to move in with me. So what does that say about me? But I think that plotline sort of wrapped itself up as well. So I think what next week's episode is going to be mostly about is, well, actually, let me look at the title. Maybe that will help us. Bridge Over Troubled Connors. Okay, so that makes sense. So the very end of this episode, Dan gets a letter that basically the house is going to be foreclosed on. He took out a second mortgage to help pay, some of the medical bills that they've had lately, and this, that, and the other thing, and probably Roseanne's funeral and all of this. So the very end of the episode is him talking to Chuck about what they're going to do, and he didn't really have any ideas yet, but he was going to, think about it and all of that. So hopefully next episode will be, all encompassing about that, maybe some stuff with Becky and Emilio as well. I'd like to see that move to front and center. We've had plenty of Darlene, Ben, and Harris storylines this year. Dan and Louise storyline, I think, they're in a good place. Like, let's not waste time with that next week. So yeah, I'd like to see all of that. But overall, I liked this episode a lot. I mean, it was hilarious, for one thing. Jackie, only, I think, was in the one scene at the Lanford Lunchbox. She hasn't really been in a main plot since the whole throuple thing with Clark Gregg and Jennifer Grey a few episodes ago. But that's okay, because there's so much going on. But hopefully she'll be more helpful next week if they're trying to figure out a way to deal with the house kind of thing. But this episode was very funny. Ben, J.R. Ferguson as Ben is so great. I love, that he has really taken a front and center role in many of the episodes this season. And, there was a nice moment with him and Mark at the end towards the end of the episode, where Darlene had kind of put Ben up to telling Mark about sex, even though she already did it. It was sort of a goof on him. But, the boy that plays Mark, and his name is escaping me at the moment for some reason, but he's such a good little actor. Let's see here. Ames McNamara, yeah. And he clearly loves Ben so much. Like, and he's at that crucial age where it's like, okay, I think around that age, like at least from the people I know whose parents got divorced at a young age, at that age they sort of are aware that, like, okay, my father's kind of a deadbeat, like, for a while I think they hold out hope that, like, dad and mom will get back together, or dad will come back around and be in my life, and David clearly isn't really doing much of that. I mean, he's there a little bit. I wish we did see Johnny Galecki more this season since Big Bang is over, but I guess it wasn't meant to be, or maybe the writers just didn't have anything juicy enough for him since they had sort of the Darlene doing the love triangle early in the season. But Mark clearly looks up to Ben, and Darlene even mentions in this episode that, my kids love and respect you, which means you don't know how to be a parent. But it was a joke, but it is true. I mean, Mark loves the Ben character. You can just tell how happy he is that him and his mom are together. And I think that's good acting from Ames McNamara too, but I think it's good writing and directing as well, because he clearly is so happy that Ben is a part of his life. And I don't think, the whole, like, can the girls sleep over? I don't think he meant for that to be anything. Like, I don't think he was thinking, oh, I'm gonna get lucky. Like, he's gay. I don't think he was thinking that way at all. Like, I don't think he was trying to put one over on Ben. But anyway, I thought this was another really strong episode, very funny. I'm gonna see next week how they handle the whole losing of the house thing, because we've been down this road several times. At the end of the original Roseanne season 10, before Roseanne was written out of the show, their house was literally and figuratively underwater because the basement flooded. But we realized that the house just was in a lot of in a bad way, basically, which would explain why he took out the second mortgage once Roseanne passed away. But I don't know. We've been down the road before, so I'm gonna withhold judgment until obviously next week's episode to see what they do with that story. But I'm glad it wasn't a focal point of this episode, just sort of the tag at the end, because we've certainly been that way, been down that road before. But this was another really, really strong episode. This whole season, for the most part, has been real solid. So I'm going to give this episode an A minus. I think we've got more strong plot lines here, and realistic too. If you don't wear a CPAP, maybe that whole thing was lost on you, of how really it is kind of embarrassing, to have this big mask on your face while you're asleep, and I know I don't like it, and I'm a good 20-25 years younger than the Dan Connor character, so I don't know, but so maybe it didn't speak to you quite as much as it did to me, but I found that plotline very, very realistic, and then I just love the stuff with Mark and Darlene and Ben too. So another strong episode. Thank you so much for watching. Made it through without sneezing, so that's good. God bless if you've got allergies like I do. I didn't for most of my life, and then a few years ago they just came right in. So thank you for watching my video. Please comment below. I love hearing from you guys every week, and you guys that watch the Connors videos are always the most passionate about your opinion. So please tell me what you thought of this episode, good or bad. And then we'll be back next week for the season finale, and I guess I'll probably do a season wrap-up as well, or maybe I'll make that a separate video, I don't know. But just one more to go for the season, and then back again with the Connors, hopefully in September or October. A, it hasn't officially been renewed yet, and B, who knows when Hollywood will reopen to actually start filming things. So especially shows like this that are typically filmed in front of a live studio audience. So we'll see what that comes down to. But thank you so much. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. Bye.